MrBeast would like to have the world think that he is merely a well-intentioned, unproblematic creator whose sole mission in this lifetime is to, quote, do good. And he's kept up this facade for the last few years as he skyrocketed in popularity among primarily children and became by far the most paid creator on YouTube. But what's really going on behind the scenes? From shady business deals involving Peter Thiel that position him as an accessory to essentially fascism, to reports of misogyny on set. The suspicious nature and problematic actions of Jimmy Donaldson showcase an incredibly telling pattern of behavior that needs to be addressed immediately before he amasses an even greater level of wealth and influence than he already has. Let's start with the most pressing but least talked about entanglement, and that's the now-terminated Forbes deal. Yeah, like I said, this deal is no longer, and that is because of the intense scrutiny by the US government and commentators due to national security concerns involving Kremlin-associated Russian oligarch Magomed Musayev. Austin Russell, the face of the deal who received his initial investment from Peter Thiel and also received $20 million from that same Putin loyalist Musayev for his company, Luminar Technologies, has donated to Beast Philanthropy before and publicly brought Jimmy Donaldson into the deal around September 2023 when he announced him as a member of the new board. It is unknown where Jimmy's level of prior knowledge and complicity lies in the matter as it stands today, but we do know that this is not the first time that Mr. Donaldson has exchanged money with Austin Russell. In 2022, Austin Russell donated somewhere between $4 and $5 million to MrBeast's Team C's campaign. And on the surface, for those that believe in the effectiveness of these kinds of philanthropies, it looks like two guys doing something good with their money, and what's not to like about that? But if we take a closer look at who the beneficiary of this $30 million total donation is, we'll see that a lot of that money actually went to a Thiel fellow-founded startup called the Ocean Cleanup. This company is developing what appear to be trash robots that supposedly have the power to rid the world of its plastic problem. However, one of their top partners is also Coca-Cola, a company infamous for their plastic pollution contribution that has still gone unaddressed. The Ocean Cleanup, much like a lot of other companies that Peter Thiel is a benefactor of, appear to merely appease corporate interests, give those same companies a way to show that they, quote, support causes that the people really care about most, and put really a pretty looking revolutionary band-aid on a much larger issue that could be much more effectively remedied in the long term through policy reform that takes power away from the source of the problem. But Peter Thiel doesn't like that. Beyond questionable business strategies and his controversial Thiel Fellowship program, Peter Thiel is nearly universally recognized at this point as an extension of the Trump administration and as the most powerful techno-oligarch in Silicon Valley with deep ties to intelligence agencies. And hey, MrBeast said it himself that he's a fan of Peter Thiel in his book that he co-authored with Blake Masters. So just remember, like I said, Thiel was a Trump loyalist, and he is currently bankrolling this similarly minded prodigy, Blake Masters, in his campaign for US Congress. And this is certainly not Peter's first time funding what he deems a young superstar, and MrBeast perfectly fits the mold of someone that Peter Thiel would pursue to exploit for his own financial gain and to gain broader influence over a younger generation. And honestly, MrBeast said it himself. He's spoken about his desire to one day run for president, and I don't think he's joking, guys. Knowing what we know, and you'll see throughout the remainder of this, it would be irresponsible to ignore the very obvious facts in front of us. 1, MrBeast has amassed the financial resources and connections to make major political influence possible. 2, MrBeast aligns with people who defended and continue to defend America's hateful descent into fascism for their own selfish benefits. 3, MrBeast has kept up a facade of being the, quote, most charitable creator despite embodying an extremely capitalistic mindset that really ignores the root of the problems he supposedly seeks to solve. And 4, MrBeast yields massive influence over children who will one day be old enough to vote and many young adults that already can. As goofy as it may sound to those that only know that he puts trains in pits, Jimmy Donaldson represents far more than fast-paced children's content and gaming the algorithm on YouTube. He embodies all of the, quote, ideals of people like Peter Thiel and has been incredibly successful at amassing a massive following that really looks to him as a savior and leader in changing the world. And that's dangerous. In our opinion, MrBeast joining the Forbes board and teaming up with Austin Russell was no coincidence, and he is perfectly content with the shady entanglements, knowing that it would reward him, hypothetically, with more money, power, and connections to those he wrongfully idolizes, like Peter Thiel. But how did little old Jimmy get into this position in the first place? Although Jimmy Donaldson started on YouTube in 2012 when he was just 13 years old, he didn't see his first official brand deal until 2017 when Quid, an NFT marketplace with a long list of BBB complaints that could be better described as legal gambling heavily promoted to children, in my opinion, sponsored one of his videos. He capitalized on this cash immediately and used it to begin promoting his strategic new, quote, philanthropic persona that would go on to fuel his future businesses and make him the highest earning creator on YouTube in 2023. Since then, he's amassed a net worth of over $500 million and has amped up his charitable productions as a key component of his business model and public image. While there have certainly been ongoing discussions around these stunts and pleas from activists to reevaluate his approach, MrBeast stands scarily firm in his choices and has even started to pre-respond to the critics in a cringeworthy fashion. This facade has enabled him to acquire and retain a number of sponsors and sources of funding throughout the last few years. This also includes his own brands like MrBeast Burger and Feastables that seem to really only exist due to his abundance of wealth and as an attempt to garner more influence, resources, and connections within the, quote, business world. Let's take a look at some of the other interesting business dealings and financial partnerships that MrBeast was previously or is currently involved in. Feastables currently partners with Spellbound, a Thiel Fellow-founded startup. Virtual Dining Concepts is currently suing MrBeast. MrBeast has worked closely with Prime, Logan Paul's brand. MrBeast manager, Reed, is CEO of Knight Media. Feastables is an official sponsor of the Charlotte Hornets professional basketball team and has a patch on the jersey. MrBeast backed and endorsed Refinable, a cryptocurrency that did a steep nosedive and had fans accusing him of misleading them into a scam. MrBeast offered his young fans a free box of Feastables chocolate bars if they bought a pass for the Creator League in September 2023. In addition to his Bitcoin holdings, MrBeast has also invested in NFTs, including 8 CryptoPunks, after being introduced to the idea by Gary Vee in a group call with 33 other billionaires. MrBeast also backed Xcademy's XCAD network. It's a decentralized finance marketplace and YouTube plugin offering NFTs. It's NFTs. MrBeast baited his impressionable fans into signing up for Coinbase, a cryptocurrency exchange where 3 were recently charged in the first ever cryptocurrency insider trading tipping scheme. Fun fact. All for a chance to win $100K in Bitcoin. And this list could go on and on, honestly, but unfortunately, this is all just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Jimmy Donaldson's lesser-known, shady business entanglements and investments. However, wealth, especially dirty money, can only get you so far, Jimmy. Let's back up and take a closer look at Jimmy's presence on the internet as a whole and the impact he's had to better understand why the base of his, quote, stardom is already, in my opinion, a shaky foundation waiting to crumble no matter how much money he throws at it. Jimmy quickly realized the power of charitable content, not the power of genuine actions and intentions, but the power of those sweet, sweet views he began amassing at an exponential rate when the world saw him as a savior. Although this made him the golden child for the platform, advertisers, and companies looking to boost their own public image, it also made him the target of criticism due to his perceived lack of empathy for those he portrayed himself, quote, saving, and the stereotypes his videos perpetuated. Alright, the curing blindness and deafness videos. This op-ed by Matthew Wade describes the issue many had with these particular videos. There's no denying that the video falls squarely into the problematic territory of inspiration porn. Coined by the late Stella Young, the term refers to instances where persons with disabilities are reduced to caricatures, paraded either for their resilience in overcoming their differences or as passive subjects waiting for cashed-up abled folk to cure them and save the day. By unabashedly embracing the genre, Donaldson's video proved both surgically precise in knowing what will capture an audience, and yet crudely naive in not anticipating a backlash. Even the thumbnail feels clumsily manipulative, featuring the heroic benefactor MrBeast with his arm around a child who has tears streaming down their face. The child does not appear in the video. Then we need to talk about his rhetoric around charity work in Africa. MrBeast, whether he intends to or not, perpetuates stereotypes that only exist to enforce a white savior mentality and to enable further exploitation of vulnerable populations for the sake of capitalistic interests. This 2021 paper, published in the International Journal of International Relations, analyzes how an inaccurate representation of Africa within Western charity print advertisements distorts reality in harmful ways. In his recent video, creator The Cavernacle describes in detail the extent to which MrBeast pushes this same narrative about his philanthropic ventures in Africa to his impressionable audience, and how it aligns with a much larger web of nefarious interests. Then we have the really out-of-touch Squid Games, and while this particular video is not necessarily a charity stunt, it similarly lacks any context or nuance and normalizes a really problematic narrative among, once again, an extremely impressionable audience. Matthew Wade also said the following of the Squid Games video in his op-ed. His seeming obsession with growth and reach can manifest in a curious lack of reflection. This was perhaps most starkly obvious in a video which cost $3.5 million to produce and has been watched over 360 million times at the time of writing, in which he recreated the Netflix series Squid Games, with 456 contestants competing for $456,000. Of course, unlike the series, the elimination of contestants did not end with their gruesome deaths. However, also absent was any recognition of the irony of it all, given Squid Game's blunt commentary on how class disparity enables economically precarious persons to be exploited for the entertainment of the wealthy. In the best case scenario, where he's given every benefit of the doubt, MrBeast is innocently unaware of the negative implications of his current approach, and he would be open to changing for the better in order to truly make a lasting difference for those he claims to care about helping. However, he's already proven that he is unreceptive to criticism and is much more concerned with doing things his way, no matter what any hater says. MrBeast, now worth over $500 million primarily as a result of his charitable persona, more often than not uses his philanthropy as a shield and scapegoat to detract from valid criticism. He also uses it as a guilt trip for more engagement from well-intentioned, primarily young fans. The hard sell and moral imperative is clear. Are you not willing to click a single button to help a charitable cause? And will you keep watching so that MrBeast can help more people? For many young viewers, especially those with little agency in their daily lives and no money to give, the promise of being part of a social movement that benefits others simply by giving their attention holds great appeal. Not only that, but MrBeast will prove to them that philanthropy can be endlessly fun. However, Rodri Davis for Why Philanthropy Matters thinks that a generation of younger people who grow up watching these videos will end up with a very warped view of what philanthropy actually is. She also writes the following in her analysis of Beast philanthropy. MrBeast videos give the impression that philanthropy is all about wealthy lone saviors swooping in and spraying money around to recipients that they have personally chosen, instead of acknowledging that most philanthropy is about the fairly considered distribution of resources through a range of expert nonprofits who do their best to ensure that those resources get to areas of greatest need. She notes that while Donaldson's effort makes for good content, it doesn't mean that it makes for good philanthropy. And this sentiment is on full display when we look at the following example of MrBeast's actions off-screen as a result of making outlandish content that contradicts the philanthropic persona that he's sold to the world. Remember, this is the guy that loves cleaning up beaches. He really cares about the environment and personal responsibility. As detailed by Peter Swanson on Substack in his April 15, 2023 piece, MrBeast left mountains of trash on a remote island in the Bahamas following the filming of his video, I Gave My 100 millionth? Guys, seriously, stop subscribing to this guy. I gave my 100 millionth subscriber an island. A sailor named Chris Folgate stumbled upon the disaster when he was boating in the area. He says that he attempted to contact MrBeast when they matched the island to his video, but neither him nor anyone from his team ever responded. Folgate only had 174 subscribers on YouTube when Peter Swanson wrote this article, and it's clear he had no intentions of stumbling into this mess. It also appears that MrBeast wasn't too concerned with the small YouTuber's video and emails, that is, until Peter Swanson posted the article. The article was then amended the next day, April 16th, to reflect that Beast Philanthropy had now offered to take over the cleanup. Chris Folgate also took down his original video once Beast Philanthropy offered to clean up because, you know, he believes in the goodness of people. But Chris, I think you should put that video back up. Whatever he paid you wasn't enough. I'm joking, guys. It's a joke. This is satire. All around, it's an odd and telling situation that perfectly exemplifies how a wealthy person like MrBeast is able to get out of a situation they never should have been in the first place by using their charity as a cover. Beast Philanthropy says its mission is to construct and operate food pantries in underserved communities and to alleviate homelessness, hunger, and unemployment. Darren Margolius, who has appeared in some of the Beast Philanthropy videos, is the executive director of Beast Philanthropy. Darren is from South Africa, and his father worked in real estate in Johannesburg from about 1970 to 1984. So this would place him directly at the center of benefiting financially from and contributing directly to the South African apartheid. Darren, before running Beast Philanthropy, was doing a lot of investing. He seems like he has a lot of money, and he worked for Coca-Cola as well, and I don't know, guys. But honestly, the fact about Darren's dad is worrisome in itself, given the concerns many have already had with MrBeast's style of philanthropy, and the way he portrays his video subjects in places like South Africa. Furthermore, this connection appears as even less of a simple coincidence when you also consider his seemingly close friendship with Elon Musk, a known beneficiary of South African apartheid state, his new romance with a relatively unknown South African streamer named Thiel, whose family ties are suspiciously secretive and have thus far pointed towards apartheid involvement, and his apparent admiration for Peter Thiel, another known beneficiary of South African apartheid and Nazi Germany, guys. Beyond the obvious concern around what ideology may be truly fueling Beast Philanthropy, there's also the question of family ties within the business and how Jimmy may have initially managed to get into such an influential, well-connected position. It's time. Time for the Beast family tree. Okay guys, the following information was sourced from Ancestry.com and publicly available obituaries, okay? It was all public information. Jimmy Donaldson's grandfather spent 23 years in the National Guard and 25 years at Raytheon, which immediately rings alarm bells when Peter Thiel, sweetheart of the CIA, is at play in the present day. MrBeast's mother, Susan, who says she once served as a prison guard for the US military in Germany and was first married to alleged abuser Charles Richard Donaldson, is the chief compliance officer at MrBeast YouTube LLC. She also appears on most of the publicly available Beast Philanthropy filings, and her new husband, Tracy Perisher, is listed as the operations manager at MrBeast YouTube LLC. There's very limited information available about MrBeast's apparent father, Charles, besides the fact that Suze accused him of abuse. However, we do know that his stepfather, Tracy Perisher, is the operations manager at MrBeast YouTube LLC, and he looks like he has a lot of money. This is all alleged. Given the problems already touched on earlier in regards to Beast Philanthropy's model and actions, it's impossible to ignore his mother's apparent high level of involvement in both his business and within the US military-industrial complex. I don't know what it all means. I'm not going to call him a CIA psyop, but at the very least, it certainly explains how he gets the tanks. But MrBeast's videos weren't always these explosive, huge, fast-paced productions, outrunning special agents and destroying Lamborghinis with military equipment. And earlier on in his YouTube journey, when it was a more casual setting, it's much easier to believe that he was doing it on his own, but it's also much easier to see who the real Jimmy Donaldson is behind the facade of MrBeast the philanthropist. Earlier on in his career, MrBeast was caught using racist and homophobic slurs and rhetoric. It was investigated back in 2018 by Taylor Lorenz at The Atlantic and published with the title, "YouTube's Biggest Philanthropist Has a History of Homophobic Comments." Elijah Daniel on Twitter, via a now-deleted tweet, also alleged, supposedly, that he even used the N-word while off-screen. And this is all unfortunately unsurprising, given MrBeast's affection for PewDiePie and the social hacking he did to initially attract parts of PewDiePie's audience. Highly encourage everyone to watch the PewDiePipeline video after this. And in 2019, an ex-editor of MrBeast shared tweets and screenshots of messages accusing him of calling him, quote, mentally retarded and replaceable while working there, and harboring an overall extremely toxic work environment. There was also conversation back this year in May 2023 surrounding MrBeast's apparent company town, if you want to call it that, I do, in North Carolina, and how it mirrors what large corporations did historically to retain control over their employees. An article entitled "MrBeast Buying His Employees a Street to Live On is Bad, Actually" by Tessa Carr says the following. The New York Post reported this week that Jimmy Donaldson, better known as MrBeast, has been quietly buying up the houses in a cul-de-sac in Greenville, North Carolina, in the area he grew up in. Over the last 5 years, he purchased his own home, then bought up the rest of the houses that surround his. 3 of them were not up for sale and were purchased off-market for almost $1.5 million combined. He purchased these homes for his family and employees. Tessa then goes on to explain why this could evolve into a very sticky situation given the power dynamic at play between a boss and their employees. She also highlights another concerning side effect: impacting local housing markets by buying houses in the area above market rate. Obviously, Jimmy doesn't care about fronting some extra cash to get the extra houses he wants, but it inadvertently affects the lives of everyone trying to live a normal life in the previously reasonably priced area. And these weren't just like houses up for sale. Donaldson was going to his neighbors and asking them to sell their homes to him above market rates. So you see where that impact to the housing market comes in. MrBeast responded to these concerns in typical detached fashion by claiming that he was, quote, just helping some people. Classic Jimmy. You can't buy houses without money though, and MrBeast keeps his empire afloat by pushing products onto his young, impressionable audience. Beyond the questionable brand deals mentioned earlier that had MrBeast pushing crypto onto children, MrBeast Burger and Feastables appear to be created solely for monetary gain, knowing that his primarily young audience would, literally, eat up anything featuring their favorite creator, no matter the product. Advertising to children isn't a new concept despite the controversial nature of it, but the way in which Jimmy navigates this space raises a number of red flags. Research shows that adolescents are indeed heavily and easily swayed by the views of their favorite YouTubers. This means that those same creators bear a responsibility to not abuse the power they knowingly have over this very impressionable group of people. Rather than being mindful of this power dynamic for the sake of the children watching, he appears to use this knowledge to his own benefit for financial gain. He also appears to knowingly use the lack of data available to track underage users on YouTube in order to claim that his audience consists of an older age range than it truly does, and disregard the obvious majority share kids between 6 to 14-ish have. On the TMG podcast, Jimmy claimed his audience was primarily 18 to 25 because that's what YouTube says, when he knows damn well that's not true. And I don't know whether he's convinced himself of this and really wants it to be different than what reality is, but his audience is mostly children and he needs to be way more mindful of that. Now enters our unexpected hero and catalyst of the most recent controversy surrounding Mr. Jimmy Donaldson, and that's Rosanna Pansino. In October 2023, Rosanna accused MrBeast of editing her and a Spanish-speaking YouTuber named Quackity out of the top 3 in his Creator Games series. She also stated that MrBeast fosters a, quote, boys club mentality on set and believes that this edit was done intentionally and maliciously, especially considered Logan Paul was given one of the winning spots for optics. Don't forget about that Prime Energy brand partnership, yeah! While many Beastie Boys, per usual, jumped to defend Jimmy and harass Rosanna about this simple hide-and-seek game that they viewed as trivial, the root of the issue is that it's further evidence that MrBeast fosters a toxic work environment, a lack of respect for women and people of color, and that he will always make the decision that he thinks will award him the most financial gain and clout, no matter the negative effects. Overall, Jimmy Donaldson's philanthropic persona has been the primary catalyst behind his rapid growth and influence. But after examining the full breadth of evidence publicly available, it's extremely difficult to view him as anything other than a capitalist-minded businessman with shady ties who will, like Peter Thiel, stop at nothing to get what he wants and amass extreme wealth and influence. MrBeast is not the first person to claim he doesn't actually care about any of this wealth he's accumulating and he plans to give it all away. But we see how that panned out for Sam Bankman-Fried. Good luck, Jimmy.